Hello everyone, this is Caillou, and today we're going to be watching the Custom Magic Servers game night, which today is a draft tournament for Design a Draft Horizons. I'm joined by TikiShades, who is the lead designer for the set. Hello, Tiki.
Hi. Hi, I'm Tiki. I was co-host with Fusego on this design trap.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for having me, by the way.
Yeah. Could you explain what a Design a Draft is for the people who may not know?
Oh, of course. So, uh, back in the day, Ancestor had this idea where he would get a certain number of designers to design part of a set in secret of each other, and when everyone was finished with their parts of the set, they would mash them all together and they would draft it and see what happens. Kind of has some of the fun of like a chaos draft, but with usually some more theming to it. Eventually, it became sort of codified that it would be 10 designers, each doing one color pair or shard or wedge, working on a single archetype.
And and this designer draft specifically is about, I think, celebrating custom magic history.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, hence the Horizons name, because it has lots of custom mechanics and custom planes referenced. But yeah, despite the thing about I mentioned earlier about different archetypes, the match we're spectating right now between a DozenLegs and Lycodrake is actually a match where both players are in very similar archetypes. DozenLegs is on black green -1/-1 counters, while Lycodrake is on specifically black red -1/-1 counters. So far, though, they
Yeah,
don't have any of those. They're just both kind of just playing out their bears and going kind of aggressive. Lyco swung in for two last turn with the Firebrand Goblin, and then he's going to swing in for another two this turn because Speakeasy Bouncer gives the Firebrand Goblin Menace due to its Accomplice ability. And this is the one thing that I like to see is that lots of the designer draft cards are cool because despite being part of a distinct archetype, they're also very much like made with design philosophy in mind. So you'll have commons, and like commons for an archetype can't be hyper specific. So you'll get like lots of this cool overlap in play states when you like end up mashing them all together into a deck. The This card is for Team Gruul. This card is for Team Dimir. Neither of them are for the Rakdos theme of -1/-1 counters, but they just come together because they're broad in where they can go in, but then they do extra work in their specific archetype.
yeah. In this one specifically, because we knew there was going to be so many mechanics, we we Fusego and I made the decision to sort of curate archetypes. So we had larger groups this time. We had a huge turnout. So we had them submit archetype ideas, and from those we kind of internally discussed. Well, this is the one that they really liked, but I think if we chose this one and this one, that might pair well together. Because we wanted the archetypes to feel sort of cohesive in some way while still trying to maximize how interesting each one was.
Mm-hmm.
So we have so some of the archetype cohesion is uh, kind of intentional, but specific cards like say like Fungal Shepherd is one that's really interesting because it specifically is not was not made for say like black red, but it works so well in it
Mm-hmm.
that it's that sort of bleed is really interesting, and there's a lot of fun play in that.
Yeah, like I think Dozen Legs' entire deck is kind of just like a bleed between the Golgari and the Rakdos archetype, just taking all of the black cards from the Rakdos and pairing them with stuff like Fungal Shepherd, which kind of like unintentionally works out right there. Like
Mm-hmm.
again, like this Fungal Shell Lurker. I think that's also because like with fungi, there was always this theme of like counter, so it's like okay, yeah, sure, let's go with this, and there just happens to be like this cool overlap.
Yeah, I mean, and even without us meddling with archetypes at all, that's something you'll see in a lot almost every designer draft. There's always emergent archetypes, which is really exciting to see. I'm very excited to see what else people have drafted, because there's always cool combos that we don't foresee.
Hmm. So, kind of a board stall happening here, but Lyco is planning to break it by invoke ancestrying the fungal lurker, and then can swing in with the Paladin of Grim Fate, accomplished by the Speakeasy Bouncer, and can start gaining back life. Um, like, I'm pretty sure DozenLegs really wants this Fungal Shepherd to be able to block and die because then can 2-for-1 Lyco, but the Speakeasy Bouncer is making it so easy for Lyco to just keep getting in for damage through one blocker. And a Conclave Misfits is going to
Oh, this
put
is
a
a
stop
very
to
fun
that.
one.
The Celestia archetype was different creature types, or like creature type soup. I mean, where else would you get there are 18 possible types as a reminder text? Like, honestly.
This was one of my favorite designs when it was made. I remember, I believe it was Buzz who had come up with the card, or very early on when they first pitched Omni Tribal.
Mm-hmm.
They said, "All right, well, what if we?" And this is fun little trivia about this card. The 18 types that are listed on the card are all different races that have appeared on a card from Ravnica, but not in Selesnya in a Selesnya card. So they're
Oh, I
yeah,
noticed that with Homunculus and Gorgon. I was like, kind of Ravnica themed, but I didn't put the whole picture together.
yeah, and that's such a cute idea. It I really like the design. It's a lot of people have brought it up as something very yeah. It's a mutant homunculus sphinx. Like that's so fun
Mm-hmm. And
to
like,
imagine putting something like that in a real set. And that's one of the things I really like about Design a Draft is it lets you pursue really kind of janky, also very parasitic archetypes that may not play well with other sets, but because they're in a Design a Draft, they don't have to. So
mm-hmm. And like one thing that I don't know if this is just kind of a like selective bias, but I feel like I do see in lots of designer draft sets they have like hybrid mana cost cards, and I feel like that helps archetype bleed a lot.
oh, for sure. I remember I specifically, because I knew we were going to be meddling with archetypes, I pushed for a vertical cycle of hybrid because I knew that with archetypes feeling having a bit of that connection, it would be much more interesting if three color were not necessarily encouraged but possible. So
Mm-hmm.
with the set skeleton, with the archetype skeleton I designed, I wanted to push that possibility as much as I could.
Wow, this is a weird. Lyco is gonna strain his own Paladin of Grim Fates. Moves wait, moves the -1/-1 counters onto the Fungal Shepherd, but shouldn't the Fungal Shepherd die then? I'm confused about how that happened.
No, no, no. Fungal Shepherd would turn into a 4/4. It has it.
Oh no, that's what happened. Okay, so moved the counters from Fungal Shepherd and Paladin of Grim Fate onto the Conclave Misfits.
So that's a fun card.
Yeah,
Oh
just
wow.
used Dozen Legs' own counters against them, killed their creature, and now can still keep up the menace train.
Yeah, and I never even thought about that as a possibility. That's a really fun card there.
Mm-hmm. And it's finally a Team Rakdos card, so we're back on theme. Ooh, okay, so it's gonna play Eternal Devotee into Bloodworker. Just gonna gain a life off of the Devotee. Both Bloodworker and Devotee are like good blockers here. Lyco's hand, like the Voracious Demon is good as the flying blocker that can close out this game. Also, once Lyco hits one more land, can just keep activating Paladin of Grim Fate's flying ability. So I don't know how Dozen Legs can get out of this without multiple pieces of removal. Does have a Voracious Demon of his own, so could play that to block a flying creature. But if Lyco top decks a land next turn, just swings with both Paladin of Grim Fates and Voracious Demon, yeah.
I'm not counting Dozen Legs out just yet because I know how much removal there is in black. Um, so he might be able to top deck an answer here.
So he's once again gonna swing in with the Paladin of Grim Fates. Yeah, Narwhal is just gonna, or DozenLegs is gonna double block with Eternal Devotee and the Fungal Shepherd. I think you just killed the Fungal Shepherd here. You take the trade, and Lyco just gains 4 more life out of the exchange. Like, the lifelink on this Paladin is paying dividends.
Yeah, the lifelink was actually a last minute change just to diversify the 3-drop slots for black. I'm glad to see it working out though, because the previous version of it was kind of lackluster. So I'm glad to see it making big moves.
Yeah, I think as like a 3 mana bear alone, it's a little bit hard to justify, just because like if you can get to the six, if you can get to 6 mana, sure, a 4/4 flyer is nice, but then like now it has a little bit more oomph to it, even at earlier points on the curve. Okay, so Crystalline Skeletonite. Yeah, this won't be able to save DozenLegs here. Needs to play Voracious Demon. Oh no, wait, what is this? Temple of the Cycle. Wait, Temple of the Cycle, that has Proliferate? Or or like
it has a single target proliferate.
yeah, I guess Vorel of the Hulklades ability, if I remember right. But yeah.
Oh yeah.
But didn't play something that can block this Voracious Demon. And now Lyco's gonna play the Firefang Prowler, which can kill the Bloodworker as well. And yeah, the DozenLegs is just gonna concede from there. Which is, I think like they both had really good decks. I think it's just Lyco just had the aggressive curve, and also had the sick play with the counter moving.
Yeah, that was all. He almost got there.
And I know that like DozenLegs has like a bunch of good 2-drops, if I remember looking at their list right. So it might just be an issue of drawing the curve when you need it. But yeah, I think from what I'm seeing, the Rakdos archetype is really good at just like setting the pace. You start early and then, which is like it isn't exactly like odd for Rakdos, but it's just you'd expect with like the -1/-1 synergies, it might have like a little bit of trouble because you need to invest value into it. But it's more of like, hey, I'm still aggressive. I just also have additional little tricks that you haven't seen before. So
there is an abundance of 2-drops. So I think a lot of games will be pace set around turn 2 because of how they set up the rest of your match.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Lyco's gonna be back in a second. Looking at opening hands here, DozenLegs has the curve of Sprouting Saproling into Fungal Shepherd, and then misses turn 4, but then Cultist of Naram is pretty not bad. Especially, you can Cultist of Naram the Fungal Shepherd to just make it even more deadly of a removal spell when it dies. Meanwhile, Lyco has a really aggressive curve, probably just the Firebrand Goblin into Everburning Emberwalker, and then if Lyco hits another 2-drop, Everburning Emberwalker can cheapen it. And then on 3, just like, yeah, has a plethora of options on 3, essentially.
And if he doesn't get this land drop, he can always start off with Emberwalker into Yeti War Drummer or the...
Mm-hmm. I just realized, oh yeah, that's an attack trigger, not an enters the battlefield trigger. Oh yeah, definitely start off with the Everburning Emberwalker. Hell yeah. Oh, but Narwhal does have the Sprouting Sapling to block. Man, like, for this deck, I feel like being on the play matters so much. Yeah, it's really interesting to see both of these players having these torture cards. I think it feels unintuitive that you're like, hey, I don't want to like hurt my creatures. Just being able to flat out the board in an aggressive deck makes it so worth it, because usually your opponent is just going, I play 1 creature, I play 2nd creature, I play a 3rd creature, and then you're multi-spelling. It doesn't matter how big your creatures are if you're just getting that damage in. It does have the curve into the Fungal Shepherd, and without the Accomplice card, I think Lyco might have trouble with this Fungal Shepherd, because its 2-for-1 potential is really deadly, especially against Lyco's deck of mini cards. Can keep giving the Firebrand Goblin menace though. No, okay, he's just gonna run out the Paladin of Grim Fate. I feel like I personally would have done this main too, because I think if I'm Lyco, I attack with the Firebrand Goblin, I take the trade with the Fungal Shepherd on an empty board if DozenLegs offers it. Otherwise, I get in for 2 more damage, and then Paladin of Grimfade.
Yeah, I think I would have liked that play. I also feel like Yeti War Drummer might have been a more interesting play, just because it would force both creatures to block it. The Menace, I think, will come into play here. Or, well, now the Voracious Demon would negate that, but...
Yeah. I think Lyco might have not attacked with the Firebrand Goblin to have the Spirited ability on Paladin of Grimfade. Yeah, like, this Voracious Demon is now a must-answer threat for Lyco. And it doesn't look like Lyco has the answer. Just all creatures. Next turn, the Double Pounce, I think will be extremely painful for Lyco. Because, let's say Voracious Demon fights Paladin, Fungal Shepherd fights a Goblin, Fungal Shepherd dies, and then Fungal Shepherd can kill whatever Lyco plays here. Okay, Trader of the Troop. Oh, that's a 5/5. He's gonna torture the Paladin of Fate. Okay, yeah. Yeah, 5/5, trample for 4, nothing to scoff at. Yeah, if you are the DozenLegs here, I think you're pretty content with just... Or could just play Temple of the Cycle, immediately proliferate on the Fungal Shepherd, and then make that Trader of the Troop a 1/1. Yeah, I think it's probably the best play is just Double Pounce, kill both of Lyco's small creatures, make Trader of the Troop a 2/2, and then swing in for 5 with the... or for 4 with the Voracious Demon. Double Pounce is such a strong card, like for a common.
Yeah, there's a number of there's a number of really powerful removal spells like this. Double Pounce among them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. I think the copy resolves first, or it might be up to. Is it up to the caster?
Head empty, thoughts gone. You think I know rules?
Oof,
It is. I don't know. Does the order even matter? I don't think so.
yeah, I mean, I was trying to think of what the.
Oh, it could be that. Okay, so it's gonna have the Fungal Shepherd fight the Firebrand Goblin, and then put the counters onto Trader of the Troop, and then have Voracious Demon fight the Trader of the Troop. That's why.
Oh, interesting.
So I guess this is similar to the play that I was talking about, except it leaves Lyco with a 1/1 instead of a 2/2.
Yeah, that's probably a smarter move here because it's unlikely Paladin's gonna be able to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as long as Lyco hits 2 more lands, Paladin can grow to a 4/4 flying lifelink. So I think personally I would have killed the Paladin instead of the Trader of the Troop, because as a 2/2 trampler, like, who cares, honestly?
Right.
But yeah, now I guess can swing in for 6 instead of just 4. Yeah, still has the... and next turn, I guess, yeah, actually, never mind. Like, next turn just plays Temple of the Cycle and kills the Paladin, so Lyco won't have the chance. Now that's... okay, that explains why...
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I forgot about.
And Temple of the Cycle... how is this Team Golgari? This is so brutal in the Rakdos deck.
Yeah.
Man. But I guess lots of the Rakdos cards put the counters on your own creatures, but for the ones that put them on your opponent's creatures, God, that's powerful. So it's going to swing back with the Paladin, gain back 1 life, and the Fungal Shell Lurker now prevents DozenLegs from attacking with this Sprouting Saproling. Ooh, but the Invoke Ancestry. I feel... yeah, he isn't going to play that, because I feel like you should just save the Invoke for now, because... if Lyco gets a flyer, then it's a problem. Other than that, you have the clock with the Voracious Demon, so there's really no need to care about the Fungal Shell. Yeah, it's going to play Temple of the Cycle, proliferate onto the Paladin, and that kills it.
This might be... I'm struggling to see how Lyco gets out of this. I feel like with the knowledge that we have, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I think Lyco needs some way to remove this Voracious Demon, and then I think they have a chance, because... on the ground, they have the Fungal Shell Lurker, and then Yeti War Drummer and Awakened Approach the Lightfire are both pretty good. So Lyco just needs that time. But, Crystalline Skelenite ain't it.
I mean, it might be one of the better plays for right now, just to get a treasure token out that so you can potentially play something stronger later. The
Hmm.
lifelink might matter. I mean,
I feel like
swinging
I'd
in
put
with
the
a
+1/+1 counter on it, and then just, and that way you can swing through the sprouting sapling and then keep giving it lifelink so that this voracious demon only deals you 1 damage per turn.
oh, that's a good point, actually.
Unfortunately, I think this is the card which DozenLegs is going to immediately invoke Ancestry on. And yep, is going to +1/+1 counter it. See, this card definitely confused me when I first saw it, because all I saw were the activated abilities at first, and I'm like, but where is Spirited? Excuse, this card has 2 activated abilities. That means it must have Spirited. Oh god, and the second invoke Ancestry from DozenLegs.
Oh man. Oh jeez.
Mm-hmm. So he's just gonna swing in with the Voracious Demon first. He's gonna. I guess invoke Ancestry is instant speed, so he's gonna save it, just in case Lyco plays something even more threatening main one. But yeah, for now, like, what? Just Everburning Emberwalker, Yeti War Drummer, and then just try to wide the board.
Yeah, looks like that's the plan here.
Oh yeah, actually no. Should only do Everburning Emberwalker, and then wants to activate the ability on Crystalline Skelenite. Yeah.
I didn't fix the first life. I was supposed to have a long hyphen between the number and the cost. Forgot to do that.
Okay, so he's gonna swing in, and I guess isn't activating the ability until damage. Okay, so he's going to activate the ability now. In response, I think invoke Ancestry. Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, Lyco's not going to be able to slow down this clock. But yeah, in the meantime, I think we're seeing some of our direct references to cards in the custom verse, like Cultist of Nram. I forgot to mention Nram is one of the elder gods in Secrets of the River Cities, which is a noir-themed set. Nram is basically just this big tentacly monster. So it is appropriate that we got some cultists out there. And I think the Yeti War Drummer is, well, I think it says Sir Alan of White. But I think this is referencing Kudalaya, because that's the main set I can think of which has Yetis in it. But the flavor text, while it is a joke, doesn't match up with the plane that I'm thinking of.
I think when they first made it, it was intended to be Kutalia, but then they changed the flavor. When they added flavor text, they wanted something silly because they found perfect art for it. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Yeti War Drummer was actually the name before they had art for it.
Oh wow, that's
So
a miracle. Like,
yeah, right. It's
in the custom game, it's so hard to find art.
oh yeah, and especially for something so specific as a literally a Yeti playing drums.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so he's gonna swing in with the Everburning Emberwalker and the Fungal Shell Lurker. Dozen is now gonna trade the sapling for the Everburning Emberwalker. The thing is, now Lyco actually has, like, at least from Lyco's perspective, has the ability to take this, because next turn, you play Approach the Lightfire and then swing with everything. That would have DozenLegs dead, but DozenLegs does have, yeah, this Invoke Ancestry, so it's just going to kill the Yeti War Drummer. So I think, unless Lyco, yeah, I don't know what Lyco can do, because gets hit for 4 this turn, and then cannot kill DozenLegs before DozenLegs just wins the game. So yeah, at minimum, needs a removal spell for the Voracious Demon. Violent Propulsion does 2 damage. It's, yeah, it's not enough. And yeah, Lyco's just going to concede. We're going to a game 3. And despite, like, DozenLegs' like, early start, Lyco almost brought that back. It was just the doubled removals. Like, it was kind of a mirror of the first game, where Lyco had their own Invoke Ancestry into that counter moving spell to just clean up DozenLegs' board and make it so that Lyco's hard to block threats could just keep getting in. So going into game 3, interesting.
Diversity stage.
Yeah, Diversity Sage just a good dork. Can Diversity Sage into nothing turn 3 because uh, doesn't have any creatures until turn 3 Voracious Demon. So Lyco, on the other hand, it also doesn't have any early plays. Earliest is the Firefang Prowler turn 3 or a Crystalline Skelenite. But does have turn 2 Bloodworker, so DozenLegs is probably just going to curve out with Diversity Sage, Bloodworker, Voracious Demon, and then go from there. Especially because you can put the counter on Bloodworker itself and then use its own ability to create a minion token.
There was a rather large push from what we had known from Torture. Torture is a mechanic from the set Villains.
Mm-hmm.
What was eventually discovered was that Torture didn't quite play as well as they were hoping. So when the team decided they wanted to do a Torture archetype, I wanted to push the idea that there should be multiple ways to benefit from having -1/-1 counters. And Bloodworker was one of the first things that came to mind because it creates more fodder for torturing.
So, unfortunate misplay from DozenLegs here. Played the Sprouting Sapling first because they thought that it counted itself when talking about creature types, but it actually does not. So I guess is gonna roll that back because I was like, why not just run out the Bloodworker for the perfect curve? Because I guess they thought they could get the value. So yeah, Lyco's gonna let DozenLegs roll that back.
Well, that's kind of them. I like seeing that, especially for something like game night, which is even with a prize pool. It's nice to see a little bit of friendliness like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but on the other hand, it ruins the spirit of competitiveness. How dare you? You're not cutthroat. You're not cutthroat enough for this industry. No, I'm just playing. Speaking of cutthroat, Lyco playing this Firefang Prowler, gonna be swinging in for that hasty menace damage. Firefang Prowler is another just powerful common for aggro. It just gets there. Also, unfortunate for DozenLegs does not hit a third land, and that means that DozenLegs cannot run out the Voracious Demon, which is what I think they really need right now. It does have the Sprouting Sapling, which now is like a one tree folk gang for blocking this Firefang Prowler.
Yeah, it's unfortunate not being able to play the Voracious Demon, but the Sprouting Sapling, at least for now, it will be able to open the door for Invoke Ancestry in case Lycodrake does start getting away with something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but for now, it's going to double block with the Bloodworker and Sapling. Going to kill the Bloodworker. I'm surprised. I thought that would block with the Sprouting Sapling because honestly, once the Sapling has made a token, it kind of has done its part, while Bloodworker still has a lot of value it can put in.
I think DozenLegs undervalued the Bloodworker a lot.
Especially with double Invoke Ancestry and a Voracious Demon. Yeah. And also, the Bloodworker dying opens the door for Lyco to play this Extract Mortality. Because otherwise, this would have been a dead card for Lyco because it would just give DozenLegs value. DozenLegs had the perfect curve if they hit a third land. And now they've missed 2 land drops in a row, and Lyco just is going to keep curving out with 3 drops galore. Actually, can probably just go Voracious Demon next turn, and then just, for now, DozenLegs can't do anything. If they attack in, their creatures die. So what was a promising start is now just momentum in Lyco's favor.
What is this token 2 that he's got here?
I'm not certain. It's probably a reminder for number of creature types or something. I am not certain. Lyco's gonna play the Voracious Demon, put a counter on the Fungal Shell Lurker. Yeah, now Voracious Demon just flies over everything, except DozenLegs hit the top the land off the top, so now can run out the Voracious Demon of their own. They're both so hungry.
I'm glad to see. I'm really happy to see Voracious Demon seeing so much play. I felt like during the initial drafts, it was severely undervalued, getting like really low pick rates, or
Which is
rather,
very, like, to me is very surprising because it's an on curve flyer, which all you have to do is put a minus one counter on another creature. Which, like, your early drops are probably not worth as much as a 4/3 flyer for 4 dog.
right, exactly. Like, I mean, even if you end up having to kill off a token, there's so much germinates in the set that you should be able to find something to put a counter on.
Okay, so it's gonna run out the Crystalline Skelenite, make a treasure, and then probably invoke Ancestry, torturing the Fungal Shell Lurker. Oh no, it's just gonna use the treasure. Actually, funnily enough, it didn't matter which mode Lyco chose, because even if Lyco chose +1/+1 counter, it could have just tortured the Crystalline Skelenite, and the counters would have canceled out. But yeah, now Voracious Demon gone, and Lyco's own Voracious Demon can swing, and swinging with everything. Crystalline Skelenite does not have haste, thank you very much. What is going on? Yeah, it would be nice to if it had haste, but no. Gonna double block the Fungal Shell Lurker, trade it for the Sapling and Diversity Sage. Lyco gains back a life because of the Fungal Shell Lurker's own ability, and hits in for 4.
And well, actually, it's going to be even more life because of. Or I'm sorry, what blocked the Fungal Shell Lurker?
Diversity Sage and the Sapling, both of which should be dead now.
Well, Diversity Sage was tapped.
So yeah, how did that happen? I'm
confused. So it would have to be Sprouting Sapling, which I think would just die, right? So the only way to block it is with the Sapling to do anything proper.
But then wait, how did nothing of DozenLegs die? Did DozenLegs just not block? I guess so. That was very confusing. But finally hit a 4th land, which means these Invoke Ancestries are online. Oh no, it's going to go the full 5 for Herald of the Nameless God. I think this is a little bit risky, given... Also, you know what's hilarious about this? Wait, Wait, I don't know why they're saying GG. But Herald of the Nameless God buffs Voracious Demon. I don't know. Wait, what happened? What happened? Huh?
Yeah, I'm not... Take a draw? We went to time. Well,
oh yeah.
Past the...
I guess it was turns. Oh. I completely forgot that these are on 50-minute timers. But yeah, if I think so. Wait, so who won?
Are they?
Well, I think it was just a tie, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh my god, it ended a 1-1 tie. Oh, that's a heartbreaker because I think Lyco could have definitely taken that. But I guess on the other hand, DozenLegs did have double Invoke Ancestry, so I guess we won't know. So that was an amazing set with like lots of crazy interactions. I'm super bummed that we won't get to see a definite conclusion to it, but I'm super glad we got to see that. Yeah.
I really like the way that the Jund colors kind of turned out. I think there's a lot of really fun interactions between Rakdos and Golgari, and I also really like the Gruul cards. I feel Gruul as an archetype didn't necessarily jive as much as I think a lot of us were hoping, but I really like a lot of the individual designs, and I think a lot of the Gruul cards are going to find their ways in a lot of red and green decks.